Are you looking to pick up a new hobby? Well, if so, I have the perfect hobby for you to check out. Today, I'm going to teach you how to properly prep and paint a Warhammer 40K figure. Before we get jumping right into everything, I figured it was important to take a moment or two to explain to you guys why I felt I was qualified in order to walk you through these basic steps of painting one of these figures. So, about a year and a half ago, I um, asked myself the same question that I asked you guys at the beginning of this video. I was looking to pick up a new hobby, so I went into the hobby store not knowing what I was going to find and went home with one of these boxes of Warhammer figures and went home, bought a bottle of glue, and started putting them all together. And when you get to that step, you get to the point that I'm explaining to you guys about how to paint it. And I found a passion for doing it and just fell in love with the relaxation and almost therapeutic process that this is. So I just wanted to show you guys an example of one of the figures that I submitted into a worldwide competition. Of course, not having any expectations for placing in it at all, and I won. Come to find out, so they mailed me a bunch of stuff. But this is the figure that I painted. I can't really see it very well. It's a little too bright, but there's a lot of detail in it, and you paint the bases, and I'll kind of show you the basic version of what it looked like before I painted it. So that's a version of it not painted. This is a version of it after I got done. So like I said, it was in Europe, was where the headquarters of all this was, and they gave me first place for it. So again, that was, I feel, why I guess could say I'm qualified, or definitely have the experience needed to explain the process of painting one of these figures. Jumping right into things, I think it's important that we just go over a short list of items, essential items, that I feel you need in order to get started on painting your Warhammer figure. So, you're going to need paint brushes. First item on the list. I've got several paintbrushes, probably more than I ever need. But you want to have paintbrushes with a couple different varieties of tips on them. You want paintbrushes with a fine point for detail work, and then you'd want some brushes that have flat tips like this one for doing like stippling and different painting techniques on the different surfaces depending on the texture that you want on the surface of it. But anyway, not going too far into that, we want paintbrushes, like I said. Then we want a figure stand. These are really important. I found I was painting at the very beginning with just holding the figure with my hand and then trying to paint, and it was really difficult. So what this does is it'll take the figure, and it's got like spring loaded, and you press it in there and it holds the figure while you take your paintbrush in one hand and hold it, and then it allows you, it's just ergonomical, and it allows you to have a better angle, and it's a lot less strenuous on your hands. So that's huge when you're painting, because the more relaxed and the better position you can get while painting these, the better your product's going to come out. So there's the figure stand. Paintbrushes, figure stand. You want a water tray right here. This is kind of an artistic version. You can just go get a cup out of the sink and use a coffee mug for all that matters, but of course I had to go above and beyond and buy some cool one. But anyway, just a water tray for cleaning your brushes, because that's important. You want, of course, the paints themselves, and I'll go down and break down the paints here in a minute. But I think the last but not least, one of the most important things that I found out, and this is called a wet palette. So this is a sponge that you soak with water, and then I take parchment paper. They have special paper for it, but I found parchment paper works the best. Then you lay the parchment paper on top of the wet sponge, and then you put your paint, like I have here, kind of already laid out for the colors that we're going to need. And then that water, actually, the parchment paper works the best because it allows the water to soak up through the bottom of the paper, and then it keeps your paints wet. I mean, I've kept paints in here for weeks at a time, and then there's a lid that comes with it, and the lid goes over the top, and it seals it, and it literally will keep these paints for, I haven't found a paint that got dried up inside of here yet. So it's really nice because these paints are pretty expensive. So again, those are to kind of recap on the essentials that I think you need is you need paintbrush, you need your figure stand, you need your water tray, like we had before, or a cup, anything will work like that. the paints themselves, and then of course a palette. You don't have to use a palette. You can just put it on, you know, your table if you want. I mean, just a piece of paper. But this will help your paint go a long way. It'll help thin the paint, which is important. We'll get into that. And then yeah, so in the next clip, we'll go ahead and I will break down all the different paints that we're gonna need. All right, so in order to get ready to start painting, we want to go ahead and grab all the paints that we need for this model beforehand. I mean, I got so many paints that if I wanted to try to find them while doing it, I would never get the model done. So I like to go in and lay out all my paints before I get started. So I'm just going to go down the list of the paints that you'll need in order to paint this this little goblin figure. I don't even remember what his name is. I think he's like a stabber or something really generic like that. So for this little goblin stabber, we're going to need the paints in this list. So the base paint is going to be Death Guard green, so we got that. And then the next paint that they call out for is the Coelia green shade. I think it's how you say it, Coelia. Anyway, it's a shade paint, and you notice it's a little bit larger than the base paint pot itself. And so the base paints are a lot thicker. They have a lot more pigment, and the opacity, you know, or the opacity of the paint itself is really high. They got a lot of pigment in them. They're very, it doesn't take very many coats to cover up another color. So this is what you use obviously for your base colors, like your skin, you know, the solid colors, the main colors, your skin, the big parts of the clothing, you know, the big objects that are different from each other. So again, this is for all the skin color. This is going to be a base coat of Death Guard green. You put that down first, and then next will be the Coelia green shade. And this stuff is a lot more, it's a lot less viscous. It's really watery. It's kind of oily. And the cool stuff about this is kind of what I've nicknamed it is a pro painter in a bottle. It takes all of those little crevices and deviations and cracks in the models themselves. These are really detailed, fine cast models. I mean, these things are expensive, and you see why. I mean, they're still a little more expensive than I think they should be, but regardless, that's another story. But to get back onto this stuff is really great because you'll put your base color down and then you'll lay this on top of it, and it's a lot more translucent, and it just kind of coats the model, and then it will start to it'll collect in the recesses, and it'll build these depths that really give it a three-dimensional look and make it look like you're a pro painter. So I call it pro painter in a bottle. Really important. Don't forget this stuff. And then next is Nurgling green, and this is a layer paint. You notice on the models themselves, or the bottles themselves, they tried to help us out as painters and put the backgrounds on the colors different. See, this one's red and this one's blue. So this is your base color. This was our first one. And then this one, of course, is a larger bottle, green. This is a shade. And then this is our layer color. This is Nurgling green. And you will put that on. And you put these on in succession. And they do this, you know, they kind of go through these steps on the box. You kind of just have to do trial and error and figure it out. Unless you got, you know, a guy with no life like me that wants to go on here and show you a video. And then after Nurgling green, you're going to use Krieg khaki, and that'll be like your detail or edge highlighting, as they call it, edge highlighting. You'll go on the outermost or the peaks of the model and try to highlight things to give it a three-dimensional look. So that's the skin color. And then we will go into, since we're using this figure, like I said, the little goblin stabber guy, he's a pretty basic model. He's got green skin. That's what we just went through all that. And then his robes are black. So you use Abaddon black, Dark Reaper, and then you use Stormvaren gray, which is over here, and then Administratum gray at the very end. So there's a total of 8 paints that you need to successfully paint these, you know, by what the box standards are. Of course, you can paint it any color you want. I mean, there's really nothing stopping anybody from doing that. I'm just not very creative, I guess, on that, and I like to paint things like the box. So that's what we're going to do. I think we've got those down, so we'll cut to the next scene here, and then I'll just show you some of the techniques that I use to start laying some of these base colors. So in the final part of this instructional demonstration video, I kind of wanted to just make it a combination of conclusion and kind of fast forward the processes of painting it, because I think I've done a good enough job explaining the different areas that you need to prepare in order to paint it. Painting it is painting it. There's nothing really technical or really secretive or special about how you paint this versus how you learn to paint in kindergarten. So I just kind of wanted to go through this briefly since I'm guessing my video is probably already too long anyway. So you'll get the model already primed. So you'll take your spray paint, like I said in the beginning. So we'll go back through things. You'll take your spray paint. You'll spray the model. Of course, I'm not going to spray it right now. It's been sprayed. You'll wait for that to dry, of course, and then you'll bring your model on your paint handle here, like we explained before, your figure stand, and get that good to go. I got my paints here, like I had showed you earlier, and they're on my wet palette. And I'll take my paintbrush. I'll get some paint on the brush here, and then I'll just start painting the figure in the area that I want to paint it on. So I'm starting with the skin, like it had kind of instructed me to do. And then I'll go through all the different colors and I'll wait for this to dry, and then I'll go through the process. I will paint all the color on the skin, and then I will do the shading, of course, and then I will move to the clothing and go to the sword and all the different items that it's holding. Like I said, these are really fine details, so it can be pretty fun to get into all those little details. And as you paint them, the fun thing is you see things that you didn't see before at the beginning. They kind of pop out at you. So you go from that black model, and I already have painted one, so I just kind of wanted to show kind of more of an end product. Can't really see it very well. This camera's not that great, but you can see the basic colors. I got the green in there. I've got some red on there because he's kind of holding like a mushroom bagpipes or something. Pretty cool. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope if there's any people out there that are looking for a new hobby, that I might have inspired you to pick up painting Warhammer 40K figures. Thanks.